Hello everyone, it's me Joseph again with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and I'm finally here doing my Territory War preview kind of walkthrough video. This footage took a while longer to edit together than I thought, and the Wi-Fi was a bit iffy here. Sometimes we have a lot of disconnects and it just made trying to upload a very big nightmare. So I've kind of evaluated my footage and I'm going to talk very much now about Territory War. So I would like to give a big shout out very quickly to the notorious BLT, which was the guild that hosted me and Stoo from the Sabers of Ren, and I love you guys. We'll say more about you guys later, but here we are just kind of in the setup phase. Now setup phase is the essential thinking of your defense. As you can see here, we found out what our opponent was called, the Fulcrum for the win. We couldn't see anything about them, but here we could also preview the rewards. Now, this is a second place rewards, so these are actually the lower rewards for what you get, but as you can see, each around GP variety, you get like certain amount of rewards. Now the boundaries for getting Zetas and stuff is lowered if you get first. Like I think you have to have like 60 million here in second place to get a Zeta, but as long as you're in first place, then you only need about 30. But yeah, that's all lovely. So here we are, just kind of looking over the different territories and stuff like that. And what I saw here was that Jakku had its own sort of faction bonuses. So First Order had like an advantage and debuff bonus, while Resistance got extra offense for exposed enemies. And these are, two debuffs that makes... these are two buffs that make sense with the map, Jakku, because obviously this is where the Force Awakens takes place partially. And they also make sense for the faction, building off of that expose for the Resistance and working on advantage and debuffs for the First Order. So what I could see here was that I could set a defense squad. So I kind of start skipping in a second, but I'm going to kind of talk about what was going on while this was happening. So in each territory, depending on how big your guild is, you can set a certain amount of number of squads. So in the Notorious BLT, we had 49 people taking part into this event, which meant there was a possible 25 people put into a single territory. However, I believe when we went on to the current version, which is on the normal server, we had about 25 the second time. So not as much, but they also meant that the defense, the amount of squads that we could put on defense also lowered. It was about 12. So it looks like if you only got like a certain number of squads or people participating, then you'll have less to put down. And hopefully the game should technically scale with, what's expected of your guild, and not put you up against a 100 GP guild with 25 defensive squads against your 13 or 12. So here I am in the footage, just kind of setting a few defense squads. I wasn't really sure what to do, so I was just throwing around random squads like the Sith and, Baze, Malbus. If I had to give some quick suggestions what I think might be good, I'd probably say like Zygon and stuff like that. But I'm sure we'll do another video after, we've had a few Territory Wars to kind of discuss what I thought's best. But here we are, this is on the next day where I got the alert for the attack phase. So this is where things start to get a bit interesting and you realize how much is going on in the actual mode itself. So we're just loading in now, and I just want to say real quick that all of the squads that you use in the attack phase can only be used once. While the squads on defense their health does carry over until they're defeated, if you use a squad and they even win or lose against that defense squad, then they will not be usable again. So if you can't take down a squad but you can take down their health will still remain low next time you fight them, but you cannot use the same characters. So here I am kind of looking over what's been done. You can see in the top right there what sort of rewards and points you get for taking out territory. At the moment we're very close to the other guild with our total score, which does change quite drastically later on. But here I am thinking of a decent, offensive squad. Obviously I've got like a ridiculous amount of characters on the test server. If you saw earlier, I think I had about like 45,000 crystals, and I had like every single character bar like the new First Order characters, at 7-star gear 10, and I took a bit of time using the free crystals to get some more at gear 12, which was all very interesting. So obviously I went for like a really solid offensive team, the Resistance, which I think I used incorrectly here actually, because the thing about the Resistance is they're really powerful against AI. Now, if you use these guys immediately against like a squad that you might not really, you could have beaten anyway, then you are wasting them because you will not be able to use them again. And you'll see that after I skip through this fight very quickly, it just goes, you know, stunning them immediately, and then it comes out. And then here we go. So I just got the score there for beating a battle. And now it actually seemed like that territory had been defeated. So what I did next was, I believe I went into the ships, but unfortunately now I know for a fact that my Resistance cannot be used again. So if this wasn't the ship territory, like, because on the top row you have the ships beyond the first territory, so you have one normal defensive squads with people and then 2 ship ones. Now the thing about ships is, if you've got only a potential of 4 fleet commanders, then there's only very few ships that you can put into use. So I put Miss Windu and the Tarkin ship? Yeah, I was trying to remember what it was called there. It's X-36 or something like that. I put both of those on defense. Now, I was going to put the other ones on defense, but then I realized I only have 2 other options, so I'd have to make those, you know, useful somehow, so I'd put them in attack. So then it was kind of like trying to save ships without realizing that, you know, I won't be needing these guys. Because if you've got, well, most people won't have, you know, like all of the ships in the game at like a decent level, it just becomes sort of a game of balancing who will work best with what fleet hero, and then also making sure that you have enough good ships to beat your second fight. I mean, you could just put all of your ships into defense, or you could put them all into attack. But, you know, it's about finding the best of both worlds, which is what I think a lot of people are going to be doing in these next few weeks and months, which still trying to be figuring out what the best and efficient way is. But my personal opinion of how to like approach this mode is by putting a lot of trash at the very beginning, like in your front territories, because in order to beat trash you still have to use characters, and even if they beat those trash characters they won't be able to use them again. So if you get someone who's put a lot of their you know, their lower end bad people on defense and not saved any decent attacks, and only has decent attack squads, or, you know, these really crazy Commander Luke Skywalker squads, then they're gonna have to use them in order to like clear your cup squads. And while people will be able to build up a lot of trash to fight trash, they're still gonna have a very hard time trying to balance the amount of characters they've got. So if you can kind of bait them from these first 2 or 4 territories with just some really low-end guys, then you could potentially waste all of their good stuff and then put all of your heavy hard hitters like General Kenobi and Baze Malbus all at the back end. So then they're going to get stuck, they're not going to be able to beat you any further, and then you can still use your other good squads to kind of push at their front, or just throw your other trash guys to destroy as many of theirs as possible. Like I said, it's all going to be about finding a balance, knowing how many to put into attack, how many to put into defense. One thing you could do is look at how many people are, you know, taking part in your territory war, and kind of organize with yourself what, if you want, like, one thing I came up with was to have half of the guild, you know, just putting down stuff on attack, and the other half of the guild doing stuff on defense. Now, that could potentially be a good idea, it could potentially not, but who knows, that's what I mean. We're all in that phase right now where we don't know what's really the best. So here we are, my footage now, coming up to the very last day. This is just after, I think, the territory war ended, so we're going to go in here and kind of go over the rewards a bit so you can see what to expect. So, like I said, our tactic was kind of a bit messy on this first one because we didn't really know what was going to happen. So, despite this, we actually destroyed them pretty well, like you're going to see in just a second. So yeah, here it is. As you can see, we had 3 remaining territories and they only had 1 left, which is pretty good. So I believe this was just before it ended. It's really weird actually, because as far as I can tell, it's already ended from what footage I've got on my screen, but no. Okay, yeah, okay, so we just had an error connection from the test server there. Okay, so yeah, this is the guild event rewards. It shows you the final score you got, and like I said, this was the sort of first place, like 80 million GP range. We got 2 Zetas, and then you get, 8 of these things, 5 of those things, and 3 yellow gear. Now the rewards are actually exactly the same throughout all of the people in your guild. So everyone will get the same amount of gear, the same sort of gear, the same amount of Zetas, and it's all spread out nice and fairly. So like I said, it was pretty good. If you are first place, obviously you're going to get a higher tier of rewards. If you're second place, it is still possible to get Zetas and stuff, but you will have to, earn it a bit more. So after that, After that, I went on to Discord and I spoke with the Notorious BLT, after we had our second territory war, which had less people in, but we sort of started to discuss what we thought. So then I posed them some questions. So we're going to head over to me on the PC now and see what they all thought. So as soon as I went onto Discord, I asked the guys if I would be able to ask them some questions, and I quickly just sort of said, do you think the mode is enjoyable, and is it worth a few minutes of the day, to get the rewards? Do you see the mode getting too repetitive, and if so, how would you keep it fresh? And then I asked them if they preferred territory wars or territory battles, and I wanted to ask them why. So first we had trademarked, which is a little B, which I think is like a guild tag. So trademarked had this to say: wars is better than battles for sure. It's shorter and more strategic. Especially because Wars is able to cut out the low-level, time-wasting stuff, as you only face guilds of your level. But in TB, you've got to get through phases 1 to 3. I can definitely see Territory War getting repetitive because of its lack of strategy, but keeping it fresh is not my primary concern. Thinking about strategy in this game should really be reserved for events and arena, otherwise you'll just not have enough time to do anything. And I think this kind of stems into a larger kind of discussion. A lot of people are kind of thinking about how much time they're spending in this game and how much it's increasing over time. A lot of guilds kind of shifted focus and, had a lot of disagreements internally after Territory Battles launched, because that would take up about half an hour to 40 minutes a day, depending on what kind of whereabouts you were in the battle and what your role was to your guild. If you're one of the people that gets the roller shards and stuff like that. So I think he makes some very good points. It's cool to see that he prefers wars over battles. I think a lot of people will, because, well, it gives you sort of better rewards for the time. People would rather have 2 Zetas for 2 days work than just kind of getting a bit of gear currency after like 6 days. So I think that's a fair discussion. So the next person that I asked was Toilet Morph from the GB, haha. So he said, I definitely think it's worth the time, considering you get ability mats as rewards as well as gear and currency. If your guild is high enough in GP, you can also get Zetas, which is fantastic in my opinion. I don't see much future versatility in the mode as such. Maybe having specific areas needing specific teams would be the most they could do right now. However, for the work you put in, I don't think the average player would get tired out all too quickly. In terms of fun, I'd say Wars is my preferred choice, as it adds another sense of competitiveness in conjunction with Arena. However, both Wars and Battles have equally important rewards, with the possibility of Zetas for Wars and the unique currency Battle providers. I spend that currency wisely and actually get quite a boost from it via base shards and stun cuff and gun salvage. So it's hard to say which rewards I prefer. Overall, I will stick with Wars as my favourite to play. Like I said, I'm not surprised to see that most people prefer Wars, as you are putting in, 4 days less effort for some equally pretty good rewards. And I do see what he means in the battle currency being very important as well, because I know a lot of people want to get base shards and all these extra characters, especially people like Hermit Yoda and now the Imperial Probe Droid, I think it is. It's the Wampa, that's right. So yeah, that's pretty interesting to see. And then the last person I spoke to was 22IX, or 9 for all you Romans out there, and he had this to say. I think because people are having to use their full roster, you get to fight some interesting teams. and that'll keep it interesting compared to TB in the short term. The gear is nice, and Azera isn't to be sniffed at, but it depends on how often we'll be doing it. It's still random gear as well. Having the chance to put everything on defense if you're busy is vast improvement, and hopefully it means people won't have to worry about when they're logging in. Other than bonus for different factions, I don't see it evolving too much from the format it's in, unless they have more zones and objectives in them. Scenarios where your team have to push out from a zone or hold key zones. I prefer it as a game format to TB's, but because I've got a few gear 12s, I kind of like getting TB's currency to spend as what I like whether gear I'm focusing on. I really like what you had to say there at the top about, fighting some interesting teams, because it's not something I thought about, but having a lot of people throwing in trash and random teams on defense is kind of interesting when you think about it, because you might have to use your own trash teams that are still kind of very low GP, but will still beat their trash team. And while gear could always outweigh their gear, you could get some really interesting fights. Like, I have a fight in the background at the moment where I'm using like Newt Gunray and some other like ridiculous characters. But, I had a lot of fun. I did actually enjoy fighting with these characters for once, and like I said, what he's just said about having the opportunity to just put everything on defense if you're busy is really kind of welcome to a lot of people. We've all kind of got real lives, whether we like it or not, and if you don't have the time to like start attacking territories, you can just put everything on defense and you're still making a fantastic contribution to your guild. So, I'd like again to quickly thank the Notorious BLT. You guys were really amazing. I like hanging out at your Discord. You've got some really good guys, and thank you for answering my questions. And I hope you all enjoyed this video at home and ready to start territory battles. I think when I'm looking at it, it's going to start in about 4 hours now. So hopefully I get this video out before then. And it's been a long time, but thank you very much for watching this. What are your thoughts on territory battles? What are your thoughts on territory wars, and what are your answers to my questions that I asked the guys? Very quickly, that was just, what do you think of territory battles over territory wars? Do you think the territory war is enjoyable? And do you see the mod getting too repetitive? Well, you can't say if it's enjoyable too much just yet. Voice your opinions. Do you think it would get repetitive? How would you evolve it? How would you keep it fresh? So, thank you very much. My name is Joseph, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.